on a semester by semester or a one-year basis, but have no promise of stability after that contract is up. Postdocs, so scholars who are the new source of cheap labor, offering scholarship research opportunities to people who have PhDs while often not paying them to do the same labor that a full-time faculty member might be doing. Or across the board, what we call part-time. And I don't feel I can even say the word part-time without doing the air quotes, because often part-time workers are teaching double, triple, and even quadruple the amount that a full-time faculty member might. So just to give you an idea of how pervasive this problem is, the New Faculty Majority, which is a nationwide organization that is out there to promote education about a lot of these issues, finds that approximately 72% of all college and university faculty, so that's 1.3 million out of 1.8 million faculty nationwide, are classified as contingent. So nearly 3/4 of all professors are contingent. It's a point that I often make to my students when they complain about Professor so-and-so that's not answering emails, or Professor so-and-so that's not in their office, or Professor so-and-so that hasn't given feedback on their grades. So compare this to 1998, when contingent faculty comprised only 58%. So from 1998 to 2015, the numbers went from 58% to 72%, and it's growing. As a member of the California Faculty Association, which is the union that represents California, which represents faculty at the Cal State system, there was a report that came out a couple years ago that found, well, I won't go into the quiz section that I usually give to my students and ask for question and response, but found that nationwide, the average first-year salary for a part-time faculty with a PhD teaching a full load. Now keep in mind, a lot of faculty teach double, triple loads. But to teach a full load that faculty are offered. So often in a lot of community colleges, a full load might be 3 classes a semester. Okay. That the average first-year salary for a part-time faculty member with a PhD teaching one full load is $29,000 a year. Now to put this into perspective, as if that needs being put into context, if the Fight for 15 campaign was successful, fast food workers across the United States had won successfully across all 50 states the right to earn $15 an hour. Their annual income would be $31,000, just over $31,000. Usually without the crushing debt of a PhD. Although, increasingly we're seeing more people with advanced degrees working in the fast food industry, proving that it's actually more lucrative to be in the fast food industry. Now, placed on top of this is what's known as cultural taxation. Now, Padilla in 1994 defined cultural taxation as the undue burden of labor that's placed upon faculty of color in the university and college setting. So it's often coded in terms of extra work that involves research, creative activities, and service to the university and to the community. It's a very unique burden that faculty of color have to endure, which ironically, they're in those positions because many of the characteristics of their own identity was what made them attractive as a candidate in the first place. So once they get hired, they're expected to take on work like increased student mentorship. Now for a lot of us, faculty of color, those are the things that we want to do anyway. We see students who sit in our office and tell us, I've never had a faculty member, I've never had a professor that I can relate to, that looks like me. We often do a lot of the diversity work, sitting on curriculum committees and hiring committees to be the face of diversity. When we have this undue burden placed upon us, a lot of our other work, including our scholarship, suffers. So the things that actually make us attractive candidates are actually the things that actually harm us in our progress towards tenure and further job stability. There's a lot of emotional, psychological, and physical tolls that especially contingent faculty have to deal with. I'm going to kind of speed up through this, so I'll be happy to answer questions and move through. A number of things that contingent faculty have to deal with that goes often unobserved to a larger audience when we're talking about faculty issues is, first and foremost, the stress that comes from the uncertainty of work from semester to semester. It's what I call, it creates a culture of exhaustion. I still find myself, despite the fact that I've been off the contingent track for several years, I still find myself still trying to detox from the trauma that was not knowing when you're going to have work, not being able to say no when extra classes that you know you can't physically handle, you can't mentally prepare for, classes that you've never taught. I remember teaching one semester a class in social work. The overall exhaustion from overwork. Being forced to take on all of these extra classes because you don't know when you're not going to have it. I can tell you in my own situation, the final quarter, I was working on a quarter system when I was writing my dissertation and teaching 6 classes on 3 schools, 3 campuses in 4 departments. That I myself ended up in the emergency room 3 times in 10 weeks because of my own just pure exhaustion. Eating, food from the convenience store all day, ridiculous amounts of coffee, trying to survive. Another outcome that's often underanalyzed is the level of censorship that a lot of contingent faculty feel that they are forced to accept. Not wanting to fall out of good standing with their university when talking about controversial topics, about enraging any students, about dealing with even circumstances of their own lives, especially when it comes to single mothers. If they dare to bring up their child one time in class, it's almost a guaranteed issue that it'll be reflected in their evaluations that women, all she's doing is talking about her kids rather than teaching us. One person I spoke to, a faculty member at Long Beach, a contingent faculty member, uses this term that I wish I had come up with desperately. He says, we're academic mariachi. We're forced to perform at a moment's notice anything that administration, our department chairs, and our curriculum committees need for us to, we're required to perform at the drop of a hat. I was like, man, that's brilliant. In talking to a few other folks, this is one thing that's especially troubling, that is disturbing and actually quite enraging, even when I was knowing that I've been through this process, and listening to the voices of people that are still enduring. When I was speaking to one contingent faculty member, Manuel, the way that he had, his quote, I still get angry when I hear this quote. I'm so lucky that this semester I have 8 classes. What he was talking about was the luck that he had to be able to afford his medical bills, because at the beginning of the semester he was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer. And because he had enough classes, was able to afford his bills, and had limited but still some medical insurance to be able to afford his surgery and his chemotherapy treatments afterward. And to talk about, my chairs are really working with me. They're going to cover my classes for the first 2 weeks of chemo so I can get through it, so I don't have to lose my classes. When they even admitted to him that they were willing to do that so that they wouldn't have to find a replacement. Sirena, the emails, oh my God, the emails, discussed over and over, being sent offers from schools that she no longer taught at to emails that she no longer had access to. And then when she would send her own email from her own personal email saying, well, we contacted you, you didn't respond. And losing out on work over and over, because as a contingent faculty member, if you don't have work, you don't have access to resources. They revoke almost immediately your library access, your email access, your office, they change the locks on you. I remember one job I had, they took my key away a week before the quarter was over, which, was a good feeling. Now, why should we care? Why should we care? Well, now I'm speaking a little bit to the choir here, because we're all here for one purpose, right? We're all academics. We're all here interested in sociology in some way. A lot of us are faculty members or future faculty members, future colleagues, which is amazing. But when I speak about this to a larger audience, especially if there's parents in the audience, the one thing I draw back on, it sounds a little cliche, and I don't want this to sound like a commercial for my union, but one of the mottos that we operate under is faculty working conditions are student learning conditions. And when we have 3/4 of all faculty that are too exhausted to send an email, that aren't paid often for office hours, it impacts our students' abilities to thrive as scholars. I know that I'm very willing to take on now in my position the mentorship that's required by a lot of my students and being able to work with people. But I know that I have a lot of students who would love to work with some of their professors, that the professors simply just don't have the time to do it. Nationwide, the diversity among faculty exists among contingent faculty. So as we have a growing amounts of diversity as students, we have the only diversity that's actually growing is among faculty who don't have the time to devote the resources, time, and attention that our students actually need. It's creating a culture that dissuades a lot of our students from pursuing these careers. My hat's off to the students that are in here. It's a long road. It's a wonderful road when you get there, but it's difficult. So what I would have left you with is a meme created by Kate Beaton. I don't know if you guys want to try and look at it. But it's a favorite little cartoon that I came across as a contingent faculty member, where there's this little duck that's being thrown breadcrumbs, and he's so overwhelmingly excited. I don't know if you can read it, but he says, "Oh yes, motherfucking breadcrumbs." But the elation, the joy, the celebration of breadcrumbs, and to hear faculty members over and over, the sheer resiliency that they have to have facing these traumas, both psychological and physical, and the persistence in enduring their circumstances, and the way that they celebrate what on this side of it now I realize often is just breadcrumbs. So with that, I know I'm out of time, so thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for your wonderful presentation.